Awesome. Welcome and thank you for joining me. So today we will be looking at something called the command queue pattern. This was something that sort of picked up at my last side project that I was working on. And this pattern helps when you have to load up some external scripts, but you're not sure whether the external script will load before your own application script. So let's actually take a look at the demo I have set up, and then we'll jump into the code. Okay, so I'm going to pull up the console here, going to refresh the page. So our external third-party code, all it does is it prints out some names. It exposes this greet function that prints out some names with some nice styling. If we open up the network tab, you'll see the third-party script loaded pretty quickly. So we have a second route. It's called slow. Let's also load up. Let's open up the Chrome DevTools. If we look at the console, we see the names printed again, but with an extra console log here, which says processing queue. We'll take a look at that in a bit. But if we look at our network tab, make this a little larger. Notice how the third-party script took 3 seconds to load, whereas with the fast HTML page, it took 6 milliseconds to load. But regardless of whether the third-party code loaded right away or it didn't, we still have the same end result. So let's jump into the code. And we can look at the server first. Yeah, we have 2 routes to point out. We have one for slow third-party. And what this route does is, after a 3-second pause, it sends the third-party JavaScript file. The second route we have is fast third-party JS. So this sends that same third-party JavaScript file, but without pause. So it's pretty instant on the local environment. Okay, so let's look at our let's look at one of the HTML files. So let's ignore this part here for now, and just concentrate on this greet, these greet function calls. So we're expecting this third-party JavaScript file to declare a greet function somewhere inside here. So the issue is, what if third-party.js doesn't load right away? Of course, we could take away this async so that this third-party JS loads first, and then this, but it just leads to a slower experience overall. So yeah, we want to be able to confidently call greet whether or not this code loads before this code runs. And this is what this code snippet here does. Now let's take a look at this. So we have window.queue, and all that does is it's set to itself if it already exists, or it's set to an empty array. Then we have the window.greet function, which is this function here. So that is equal to itself if it's already defined, or it is a function which just pushes its arguments to this queue. So if we assume that this code hasn't loaded yet, all our greet function is doing is pushing the names George, John, and Thomas into the queue. So let's look now at third-party JS file and see what this does. So here it also declares window.queue. It's equal to itself. If it's not, set it equal to an empty array. And this while loop is the important part. So this while loop goes through the queue. It grabs each string from the queue, and then it calls this real greet function on each of the arguments. And if we look at real greet, all this is the console log with the formatting here. And then at the end of the file, we say window.greet is equal to this greet function. So what's nice about this is in situations where the slow third-party JS file takes way too long to load, this code runs and it just pushes it into a queue, pushes all the arguments into a queue, and then when third-party JS file gets loaded up, it goes through the queue and calls the function. And then if we look at our fast HTML file, it's pretty much the same thing. We have this code snippet here, which we need, and then we call greet as expected. So remember this flow.html? We noticed there was this extra console log here, processing queue. So we could see in our third-party script, whenever we use this queue, this console log is fired off. So this makes sense. The third-party JavaScript file took 3 seconds to load. In that time, this code already ran. So that's why I used the queue. But if we go to the fast.js file, in the fast.js file, this file loaded right away, and then this ran. So we are not taking advantage of the queue. We're just using the third-party JS greet function as it is. And that's all I wanted to show about the command queue. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Happy coding.